Every day, all across this world, men, women, and children go missing, quite often without a trace. If anybody has ever gone missing near where you live, there are usually mass searches to find someone who has gone missing.
Nearly 1 week after his disappearance, family and friends scoured Midtown Sunday afternoon.
Very unusual. He missed work this morning, was extremely unusual. He's very conscientious about his work.
People are out here combing every part of Jasper County they can.
Usually there are clues that will point to what has happened to someone. Clues that will often give us insight into the whereabouts and how they may have disappeared. In the cases that we are going to look at today, these were the final photographs and final videos taken of those that have gone missing and have never been found. July 8th, 2014. Taking one look at this photograph captured on CCTV footage in Varna Airport in Varna, Bulgaria. The subject, Lars Matank, seems to be in incredible stress. He's running, sprinting, as if he's trying to get away from somebody. Lars Matank was a German man. He was on a vacation with his friends, and they were doing the typical things you would do on a vacation. Going to the beach, swimming, playing football, and heading out to the clubs. You know, typical things that a 28-year-old man would be doing on vacation. Although his friends did notice something a little off about Lars. He was acting very strange during this trip. He was eating very little, getting into quite a lot of trouble at the clubs, often getting into fights over football games. One fight even resulted in Matank suffering an injured jaw and a ruptured eardrum. He went and saw a doctor who advised him not to get on the plane to go back home. He prescribed him the antibiotic Ceprozil. See, Lars, at this point, was thinking he was okay, he was fine. So he advised his friends to go back home and, just continue with the plan as things were supposed to go. And he told them to fly back on July 7th, which they did. So Lars goes and he checks out of the resort that they were staying at, just like his friends did. He goes and he checks into a smaller, lesser known hotel in the area just for one night. The hotel was cheap and close to the airport, and he thought, this would be a good place to stay and get some rest before he was able to get back on the plane. Because at this point he was still kind of feeling a little strange. His doctor had advised him to not fly, so he wanted to give it another day. So the day comes, his friends leave, and he stays behind. And at this point, he becomes paranoid. At the hotel, he starts becoming a little frantic, a little worried about his state of mind. So he calls his mother. When he gets on the phone with his mother, he starts whispering, and she could barely hear the words he was saying. At this point, things are getting out of hand, because Lars is talking about 4 men that are following him. His friends knew he was acting strange, but they didn't know that anybody was after him. It didn't seem as if anybody was after Lars. He told his mother on the phone that these 4 men were there to murder him. They were there to try and kill him, and that they were going to rob him. So he advised her to cancel all of his credit cards. CCTV footage in the hotel captured him pacing up and down the hallways. He was peeking through windows, acting very strange. He even hid in the elevator, something similar to another disappearance. At the late night to early morning hours, sometime around 1 a.m., he left the hotel and returned after about an hour. There is no information about what he did or where he went during this period. In the morning, Lars gets on the phone with his mother for a second time. Now, at this point, he's telling her that the people that are after him are closing in. So Lars decides that it is time to go, because he's not going to stick around for whatever's coming. This was the day that he was hoping to fly home to Germany to return to his friends and family. Nothing really seemed out of the ordinary at this point. He texted his mother that he had arrived at the airport and that he would be flying home soon. He went to consult with the airport doctor, Dr. Kostov. Dr. Kostov noted that he was acting nervous and erratic, but nonetheless, he cleared him to fly home. Lars had been nervous all the way up until this point, and he's even more nervous given the medication that he had been taking. At one point, he even yelled out, "I don't want to die here." This was his reaction to construction happening in the airport. He said out loud, "I have to get out of here." He left behind all of his luggage, which had his wallet, his cell phone, and his passport. He was captured by airport security cameras, fleeing the terminal. And once outside, he can be seen jogging away from the airport. He hops a fence and runs into a nearby meadow, sprinting off camera in the direction of a nearby forest near Bulgarian National Highway A2. These are the last whereabouts of Lars Mattank. Early August of 2002, an experienced mountaineer and snowboarder decides that he wants to be the first man to ever descend Mount Everest on a snowboard. Marco Siffredi was born May 22nd in 1979. He was a French snowboarder and mountaineer who hailed from a climbing family. His entire family basically lived in the mountains. His father was a mountain guide, and his older brother liked to climb mountains just as much as Marco did. Tragically, his older brother Pierre died in an avalanche when he was climbing near their hometown, and as you can imagine, this was a big hit to Marco. He really enjoyed climbing. He grew up with this. This is what his family did. He set out to climb and reach the top of many mountains, and his major goal was to climb Mount Everest, which he in fact did do on May 23rd of 2001. And as he's standing atop Mount Everest, he looks down. He realizes, since he is an experienced snowboarder, that he wants to be the first to ever descend Mount Everest. Now this is incredibly dangerous, and for anyone to be the first to do something is completely miraculous. Marco feels that this is his calling. No matter what happens, he's going to be the first to do this. So he sets out in August of 2002 to Nepal. And Nepal is tucked away inside the Himalayan mountains and is populated by a group of Tibetan people known as Sherpas. And the Sherpa people live in the mountains, so they understand how dangerous it is and how crazy some people might be to even attempt to do this, but they act as guides for those who wish to reach the peak of Mount Everest. After spending some time in Nepal, on August 10th, Marco and 3 Sherpas set out for the peak of Mount Everest. He leaves Kathmandu and reaches Tibet, the first base camp, on August 14th, so it took him 4 days to reach the first base camp. After this, they planned the trip to the top of the mountain, and this trip usually takes, depending on the weather, it can take 2 weeks to a month, and it takes them 3 weeks to reach the advanced height of Mount Everest, which is about 8,300 meters. And this isn't quite the summit of Mount Everest, but this is very near the top. And the very next day at 2:10 p.m., Marco and the 3 Sherpa peoples reach the top of Mount Everest. Now, all along this trip leading up, the Sherpas definitely understood the weather conditions and would often tell Marco that if anything were to go wrong, that he should definitely back down. This is not something to die over, but Marco was determined. At this point, since he made it this far, he had traveled almost a month up the mountain. If he were to reach the top, he would have to do this. There would be nothing that could stop him. No one could convince him. Weather conditions become even more severe. The temperatures become blistering cold. At this point, you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. Mind you, this man wants to descend on a snowboard, and this path that he chooses already is dangerous with good weather conditions. There's this passage called the Hornbein Collar at the top of Mount Everest, and it goes down. And a collar is a very steep, almost vertical drop. Marco decides this is his descent. It's almost a death wish. And the Sherpas urge him to not make this trip. They've made it this far. It's not worth it. It's not worth dying over. But Marco is in his own world. He is off in his head somewhere, dreaming. He's doing it for his brother who passed away. He's doing it for his father. He's doing it for himself. So Marco ignores all the warnings from the Sherpa, and he in fact takes a nap, as he's not even bothered. He takes an hour-long nap and proceeds. He makes it to Hornbein Collar. The Sherpas begin to lose sight periodically of Marco. Every now and then they get a little glance, a little image of Marco in the distance, and they're trying to keep track of him. At the North Col, about 1,300 meters below the third camp, Sherpas notice a man standing up and then silently sliding down the mountain. And this has to be Marco. No one else is up that far. So they rush to this area because there's no sign of him coming down. They rush to the area where Marco was last seen, and once they make it there are no tracks, there are no indications, no indentations from his snowboard. Nothing is left behind, no gear is found. A body is never found. This was the last anyone had ever seen of Marco. This picture was the last picture taken of Marco Siffredi before his disappearance. The case of Madeleine McCann is the worst fear no parent ever wants to face. Left without a clue, their daughter was taken in the night, ripped away from her bed. Now, this is a very infamous case. There was incredible media attention around this and international investigations and massive searches just to find this girl. On Thursday, the 3rd of May of 2007, this was almost the last day of the family's holiday. The family were having breakfast and Madeleine asked, "Why didn't you come when my brother and I cried last night?" Now, to her parents, this just seemed like something that she said because they ignored her because she was crying. You know, because kids cry. Parents don't always respond to children crying because maybe they're doing it for attention or whatever it may be. But nonetheless, this was sort of strange of Madeleine to express to her parents at breakfast, as if something else was up. The children spent the morning in the resort's kids club. Then the family returned to their apartment, had some lunch, and they went out to the pool. At the pool around 2:29 p.m., Madeleine's mom, Kate, takes this photo. It shows Madeleine sitting by the pool next to her father and her 2-year-old sister. After this, the children were returned to the kids club. Around 6 p.m., their mother took them back to 5A, which was their apartment number, and their father went to have a tennis lesson. The McCanns had put their children to bed around 7 o'clock that night. Madeleine was left asleep in short-sleeved pink and white marks and Spencer's Eeyore pajamas next to her comfort blanket and a soft toy cuddle cat. The family were vacationing in Portugal, specifically in a holiday apartment at the resort Praia de Luz in the Algarve region. Now, this resort had a tapas restaurant. A tapas restaurant is basically a Spanish restaurant that serves appetizers and drinks, and basically a bar with savory Spanish dishes. And at 8:30 that night, Madeline's parents left 5A to dine at the tapas restaurant. This was located on the other side of the pool across from their room, about 180 feet away. But to get to this restaurant, you had to walk along a public street in order to reach the doors of the Ocean Club's resort. Then you had to walk through the resort to get to the other side of the pool, but the top of the apartment was visible from the tapas restaurant. Her parents could keep an eye on the apartment from where they were, but they could not see the doors of the apartment, so they wouldn't have been able to see if anybody had come in or not. The patio doors to their apartment could only be locked from the inside, so the parents had left them unlocked but closed. So this would be the way that they would be able to check on the children whenever they needed to. There was a child safety gate at the top of the patio steps and a low gate at the bottom of the stairs, which led to the street. So the resort staff had left a note inside the message book at the swimming pool's reception area, asking that the exact same table every night would be booked for 4 nights for the McCanns, and this table would directly overlook the apartments. And the message read that the children were sleeping in the apartment. So somebody had actually wrote down in the note that the reason they had this table booked was so they could watch their kids at night, which Madeline's mom actually believes that the abductor more than likely read this note. So the McCanns and their friends are at dinner, and every 30 minutes or so, they send someone to go check on the children. So Madeline's father is the first to go check on the children. This is around 9:05 p.m. To him, the children were asleep and all was well. He did notice that originally he had left the door ajar, and when he returned to check on the children, the door was now standing wide open, and he didn't think too much of this at the time. Ended up just pulling the door nearly closed again and left back to the restaurant. A sighting at 9:15 happens. This sighting was from a woman named Jane Tanner. Tanner had told police around 9:15 p.m. that she had noticed a man carrying a young child across the junction. He was not far from Madeline's room. He was heading east, away from the front of the apartment. In the early days of the investigation, the direction in which he was walking was thought to be important because he was moving towards the home of Robert Murat, and this was the 33-year-old British-Portuguese man who lived near 5A and who became the case's first suspect. The child in the man's arms was wearing light-colored pink pajamas with a floral pattern and cuffs off the legs, similar to Madeline's. Tanner described the man as white, dark-haired, 5'7", of Southern European or Mediterranean appearance, 35 to 40 years old, wearing gold or beige trousers and a dark jacket. According to Kate, Tanner passed the information to the Portuguese police as soon as Madeline was reported missing, but they did not pass the description to the media until the 25th of May. Madeline's fund hired a forensic artist to create an image of the man, which was released on October of 2007. The sighting became important because it offered investigators a time frame for the abduction, but Scotland Yard came to view it as a red herring. In October 2013, they said that a British holidaymaker had been identified as the man Tanner had seen. He had been returning to his apartment after collecting his daughter from the Ocean Club. Scotland Yard took photographs of the man wearing the same or similar clothes to the ones he was wearing on that night, and standing in a pose similar to the one Tanner reported. The pajamas his daughter had been wearing also matched Tanner's report. Detective Chief Inspector Andy Redwood said that they were almost certain that Tanner's sighting was not related to the abduction. The second sighting reported to Portuguese police on May 26, 2007 was by Martin and Mary Smith, who had been in Praia da Luz on holiday from Ireland. Scotland Yard concluded in 2013 that the Smith sighting offered the approximate time of Madeline's kidnapping. The Smiths saw the man around 10 o'clock, 500 yards from the McCann's apartment, walking away from the Ocean Club and toward the beach. He was carrying a girl around 3 or 4 years old. She had blonde hair and pale skin, and was wearing light-colored pajamas, and had bare feet. The man was in his mid-30s, around 5'7" to 5'9", slim to normal build, with short brown hair, wearing cream or beige trousers. He did not look like a tourist, according to the Smiths, and had seemed uncomfortable carrying the child. Around 10 o'clock, Madeline is reported missing. Kate had intended to check on the children around 9:30, but Matthew Oldfield, one of the friends that had gone out with the families to the restaurant, offered to do it when he went to check on his own children. And again, he noticed that the McCann's children's bedroom door was wide open. But after hearing no noise, he did not investigate any further. He didn't look any deeper into the bedroom. He did not recall whether the bedroom window or shutter were open at this time. Very early on in the investigation, people actually accused Matthew Oldfield of being involved in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, suggesting that he might have handed her over and offered her up to whoever abducted her, since he was the one that volunteered to check on the children. Kate made her own check around 10 o'clock that night. Scotland Yard had stated in 2013 that Madeleine probably disappeared just moments before her mother walked through the door. Kate had recalled entering the apartment through the patio doors and had noticed again that the bedroom door was wide open. When she tried to close the door, it had slammed shut as if there was a drought. At this point, she noticed that the window across the room had been opened and the shutter was also open. Madeleine's cuddle cat and blanket were still on the bed, but Madeleine was not there. After briefly searching the apartment, Kate ran back towards the restaurant, screaming, "Madeleine's gone. Someone's taken her." At around 10:10, Jerry sent Matthew Oldfield to ask the resort's reception desk to call the police, and at 10:30, the resort had activated its missing child protocol. 60 staff and guests searched the entire resort until 4:30 a.m. At first, everyone had just assumed Madeleine had wandered off. No one had thought of any foul play or anybody had abducted her. So all throughout the night, searchers had been yelling Madeleine's name, trying to find her, trying to find if anybody had known where she went or anybody had seen her, and they'd never found her. This was the last photograph of Madeleine McCann, enjoying pool time on vacation with her family. She has never been found.